What is up, you guys? Today I'm bringing you a different type of video. Now, I've been wanting to put Pokemon related content on my channel for a while now. It is my favorite game franchise after all. So now I'm starting a top 5 series on anything Pokemon related. Now when it comes to Pokemon, one thing that always particularly bothered me is how I think things should be. In this case, Movepools Pokemon should have, but for some reason they just don't. You hear it all the time in the Pokemon community, like how Scyther doesn't get fly even though it has wings, or how Zangoose can't get cut despite it having long razor-sharp claws. After doing some research, I compiled a list of Pokemon that I felt should get certain moves. In the end, I couldn't decide on just 5 Pokemon, so we're actually having a top 10 list here. Keep in mind, the reasons I gave for why a Pokemon should have certain moves are not just because it makes sense for it to have it, but more for the fact that these moves would make it more competitively viable in the metagame. I want you guys to know this is my opinion, and if you don't agree with it, let me know in the comment section what Pokemon you think deserve to be on this list. I do plan to do more of these in the future, and who knows, maybe I'll include your thoughts in the next one if I agree with it. Please make a note that I do not own any of the images you will see from this video. Any images you see from Google are owned by their respective owners and copyright. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's get on with this, shall we? Number 10 goes to Flareon, and the moves I think he should get are Crunch and Wild Charge. Okay, so the reason why Flareon is number 10 on the list is because Game Freak had the decency to finally give him Flare Blitz. This made me so happy because Flareon just happens to be my favorite evolution. But you know what? It's just not enough to make fully use of its monster's attack stat. If it had access to Wild Charge, it would be able to hit water types very hard. And if it had Crunch, it could take care of those ghost types that like to burn all your other pokes, which Vasab would be unable to touch and not take unnecessary recoil with Flare Blitz. Just by having those two moves will make Flareon that much of a monster of a hard hitter. One that could even surpass Arcanine potentially, even though it still lacks the speed to do so, but that's another topic entirely. Plus it can always get Flame Charge. At number 9 we got Medicham, and the move I think it should get is U-Turn. Now when it comes to this move, it's hard to see what distinctions Game Freak uses when deciding who to give this move to. But there seems to be no rules as many type of Pokemon are able to utilize this move, such as bugs, of course, birds, but what really caught my eye were the fighting types, like Infernape, Primeape, and Mienshao, which are all great at using this move themselves. So why not one more fighting type? In this case, Medicham. When it comes to U-Turn, I noticed that Game Freak picked Pokemon who are known to be pretty quick, such as Ninjask and Jumpluff, to have this move. While Medicham isn't the fastest around, it certainly isn't the slowest that should know this move compared to every other Pokemon who can. In the metagame, U-Turn is something that many Scar Pokemon are given, and Medicham is a great hard hitter that could live to fight another day with a quick hard hit and then switching. It's great to hit those pesky psychic types, and I don't see any reason for Medicham not to have this move. It even looks like it can U-Turn compared to the ones who can. Other examples include Lumineon and Clawitzer. Really? Why them? Plus it'll hit even harder if you choose to Mega Evolve instead. In that case, why don't we give it to Lopunny as well? Especially since it needs something to hardest hit psychic types. That way, they'll both fake out, get their speed from Mega Evolving, and then hit the opponent very hard to live to fight another battle, preserving your Mega with extra damage instead of a safe switch. And another thing, why are so many electric types on the list when they have Volt Switch? That's just not fair. It's also wasted on Hawlucha considering U-Turn gets rid of its most useful ability, which is Unburden. And I just thought of something just now. Diggersby gets U-Turn, so why not Lopunny? At number 8, we've got Hydreigon, and the moves it should get are Dragon Dance and Nasty Plot. Hydreigon is a very cool looking design, in fact it's one of my favorites. However, very much like Flygon, it doesn't really have any good setup moves. For a physical set, Dragon Dance would be great for it, giving some great speed since many pokes outspeed base 98 base stats. Nasty Plot would be perfect for it. It's Dark type, it's got 3 heads, and it will be greatly increase its special attack stat, which is the highest out of all the pseudo legendaries. Instead, all he gets is Work Up, which is more fitting for a mix set. Just please give it one of these, Game Freak. Please. Charizard, Magmar, Blaziken, Typhlosion. These are just a handful of fire types who are capable of knowing Thunder Punch, giving them something to hit water types with. So tell me, why can't Darmanitan, with his huge ass pawns, be one of these fire types? It's ridiculous when you see that Delphox can know this. Why? Not only does Darmanitan have the attack power to fully utilize this move, but it could be boosted by his sheer force ability, because let's be honest, nobody uses Zen mode. dealing a great amount of damage to those water types. Instead, it has no super effective moves to hit water types at all. It could even replace Rock Slide, even though they have the same base power, Rock Slide can still miss, and we all know how Rock type moves tend to miss from time to time. It even looks like it can use Thunder Punch. So if Typhlosion is capable of using this move with his little stubby arms, I don't see why Darmanitan can with his gorilla-sized ones. Number 6 goes to Flygon, and I think the move it should get is Dragon Dance. Flygon comes off as one of those Pokemon that's just has so much potential, and back in Gen 3, people even consider it to be Salamance's rival. He has that nice Dragon and Ground typing, along with 2 immunities thanks to his ability Levitate, and has good resistances. And unlike Salamence, it can safely switch into Stealth Rocks, and because of the 2 immunities, the good coverage with his Movepole and Stab Earthquake, it often fights plenty of free turns as it forces the opponent to switch out. It has decent speed, which is the same as Salamence, but Salamence can change that with Dragon Dance, which is what Flygon needs. Every so often, Flygon finds itself in a pickle once the opponent switches out, so it has no choice but to rely on prediction to do decent damage. What Flygon needs is a good set of moves to help turn the tables onto the opponent. Sure, it gets home calls, but that doesn't do anything for its speed, and there are many Pokemon that are capable of outspeeding base 100 speed that Flygon has. And Power Up Punch takes up an entire move slot. Having this move will make Flygon capable of sweeping teams, though not as much as Mega Salamence, let's be honest. So by having Dragon Dance combined with resistance to Stealth Rock and immune to Volt Switches would make Flygon a triple threat of a Pokemon. Of course, they can always just give it a Mega instead, though the reason one wasn't made was lack of a good design, which is understandable. Number 5 goes to Aerodactyl, and the moves I think it should get are Head Smash and Brave Bird. Okay, where do I begin? Aerodactyl has the Rock Head ability but only has Takedown and Double Edge to work with. Really? 2 normal type moves which aren't even stab. Head Smash will be perfect on it, and Aerodactyl can use this move to its fullest potential without taking any damage whatsoever, and unlike Aggron, Aerodactyl has the speed necessary to make the move work. Not to mention 3 other prehistoric Pokemon can have this move, but for some reason, Game Freak doesn't give it to the original prehistoric poke. Aegislash, a floating sword, can use this move and it doesn't even have a head. As for Brave Bird, there is almost no reason not to have this move. Let me explain. Even though Aerodactyl isn't really seen as a bird, everything that Aerodactyl could breed with consists of birds, almost all of which can use Brave Bird, even a Zubat, which is not even a bird, not even close to being one. So if a freaking Zubat can get Brave Bird, I don't see why Aerodactyl shouldn't have this move as well. Now, if you want to go for more power, you can use these moves with the Tough Claw's abilities in its Mega form, which boosts the power of contact moves and do a hell of a lot of damage. Aerodactyl shouldn't have to resort to using Aerial Ace or Fly for decent stab flying type damage. Rock Slide and Stone Edge don't even make contact, so they wouldn't receive an increase in power. Seriously, Game Freak, get your head together. Number 4 goes to Cloyster, and the move it should get is Water Shuriken. When Gen 6 was introduced, we received a new physical water move which can hit up to 5 times and has priority. That's good enough, but there's a problem. It's on Greninja. Don't get me wrong, I love Greninja, and he's a cool ninja Pokemon and all. I even picked him as my starter. But his stats doesn't really help it on the physical side, and it's more of a special attacker. Now, if Cloyster had this move, combined with its Skill Link ability, not only will it always hit 5 times, but users can replace Ice Shard with a new priority move, which will allow Cloyster to have more type coverage in his arsenal with a new stab move along with Rock Blast and Icicle Spear, utilizing its ability to the fullest potential. I've actually used this move on Cloyster in a tier called Stabmons on Pokemon Showdown, a tier where Pokemon can use all the moves of the same type as their own typing, and let me tell you, it puts in work. And another thing, before Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire came out, I learned that another Pokemon will indeed be getting this move. Unfortunately, it turned out to be Excelgor, another ninja Pokemon that has better special attack stats than its physical one, which makes no sense since ninjas are known to specialize in combat, like ninjutsu. Why you must tease me, Game Freak? Why? Number 3 goes to Malamar, and the move it should get is Sucker Punch. What's there to say about Malamar? Unique way of evolving, unique typing, great ability, contrary, and a nice move to make use of that ability, Superpower. Too bad it's as good as it gets. The only thing this tentacle beast is lacking is a good priority move. In this case, Sucker Punch. When I first heard about this Pokemon, I was rather surprised that it didn't have access to Sucker Punch, which is something it so desperately needs. Instead, people are forced to slap a Choice Scarf in hopes of outspeeding the opponent. With Sucker Punch, people won't feel the need to place a Choice Scarf on this. At least it gets knockoff, but without priority, this thing could be in a doomed situation. A situation where a Pokemon like Bisharp, who can use both of these moves, doesn't have to worry about. Before anyone can argue, Sucker Punch is not a punching move, because not only is it not powered up by Iron Fist, but in Japan, this move is translated into Surprise Attack. To Sucker Punch someone means to hit someone with an unexpected blow, a cheap shot if you will, fighting dirty, which makes sense why it's a Dark type move. You don't necessarily have to use your fists. In fact, there are Pokemon who are unable to form a fist that can use this move, such as Spiritomb and Galvantula. In its various Pokedex entries, it states that it uses hypnotic powers to lure prey or forces others to do what it wants. Even in the anime, Malamar was depicted as an evil villain who wanted to use mind control device to take over the world. And you don't think that it's out of character for a villain to fight dirty? Number 2, Kyurem Black, and the moves it should get are Icicle Crash and Bolt Strike. When I heard that Kyurem will get new forms named simply Kyurem White and Kyurem Black before Black 2 and White 2 came out, I was really stoked to try out the first combined Pokemon in the game. It was revealed that Kyurem's forms were trying over Reshiram and Zekron's best stats being Special Attack and Attack respectively. However, after testing, Smogon posted the results where they ranked, and I learned that only Kyurem White would go to Ubers while Kyurem B stayed behind in OU. When I learned this, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, we're talking about something that has a base 170 attack here and has the second strongest outrage in the game, the first being Mega Rayquaza. Similar to Flareon, although not as bad, Kyurem B lacked the necessary move pool that would normally send it straight to Ubers right away, such as Earthquake and a strong physical ice move, but instead it has to rely on Ice Beam on its mixed sets, because no one's going to use Freeze Shock. With Icicle Crash, Kyurem B will finally know how it feels to have a strong stab physical ice move and take advantage of that monster of an attack stat. Not to mention, it has a chance to flinch. Maybe this alone isn't enough to make it to Ubers, but hey, it would be a start. A question I have is, since it's part Zekrom, why can't it know Bolt Strike? That's all I have to say about that. Some of you may not be too fond of this idea, but when there's a Pokemon with a base attack of 170 in OU without a Mega Evolution, a line just has to be drawn and it just screams, I want to be in Ubers where I belong! Taking the top spot of the list is a Pokemon that needs not 1, not 2, not even 3, but 4 moves to help it out. May I ask, how do you feel that Regigigas, the colossal Pokemon, who created the other 3 Regis, is placed not only lower than its creations, but also to be the only poke with a base 670 total in a tier that's even lower than NU, which is PU? PU! I honestly don't know what Game Freak was thinking, giving it slow start, cutting its attack and speed in half for 5 whole turns. That's more than enough turns to get rid of Regigigas and then some. Not to mention, with your power cut in half, you're pretty much letting the opponents get a free setup and sweep later. And can you believe that Regigigas is the only Pokemon who can learn TMs that cannot learn Protect or Rest? Most likely this is probably to prevent people from countering its own ability by avoiding damage or healing itself. Well, don't you think you kinda overdid it, Game Freak? Stalling out its ability is the very reason it should have Protect in the first place, because Regigigas is the very definition of over-limiting your power. Either limit the ability to make it last 3 turns at most, or just give it Protect already. See, if it had Entrainment, you could make others suffer along with you, by giving them the same ability as you, or better yet, give it Skill Swap to get rid of the horrible ability entirely. Some might say that getting rid of the ability would make it too overpowered. Well, that's kind of the point, because at the end of the day, it's the colossal Pokemon with a 670 base stat total, and it should just leave the tier of shame that is PU. Poor thing can't even heal itself of potential status problems with Rest. The only way this thing could get HP back is with Drain Punch, and with its attack cut in half, it's not getting much back.